Good afternoon, sir. I am Jinky Escoreal and along with Jade Azcuna, Maria Angelika Yorpo, Trazie Mae Blanco, Agustina Odever, and Maria Soledad Famor, we will tackle about the literacy rate of Singapore. But before that, we will first discuss the 21st century teaching and learning.
This is the graphic organizer of 21st century learning. So, 21st century learning are considered the most important skills to succeed in today's workplace. So, students need to be given the chance to create technology, not just learn to use it.
Media-driven. So media-driven is used as a means of supporting that learning process for learning objectives can be achieved. Because if we learn in media-driven, we must do in learning materials designed to be highly relevant and delivered in context, then it is likely to be useful.
Learning-centered. So learning centered empowers the student to take ownership of what they learn by focusing on how the new knowledge solves a problem or adds values. So when we say learner-centered, it is based on the needs, abilities, interests, and the learning styles of the students.
Interdependent. Increased transparency between schools and local communities. So people combine their own efforts with the efforts of others to achieve their greatest success.
Adaptable. So adaptable responds naturally and meaningfully to data and emerging best practices. And sometimes we people must have an adaptable, flexible and never stop learning because the rate of change will never stop and neither should you.
Data rich, persistent and highly consumable data and resources planned data sources that allow for easy data revision of curriculum instruction. So, what is highly consumable? Highly consumable means that every weekly publication includes learning activities your students can do right on the publication vocabulary.
Transfer by design, it is learning constantly adapt, revise, and synthesize information using old Rigang learning in new and familiar meaningful fools way. Having live or irritatively long time or attain a specific age.
Personalized is an educational approach that aims the customized learning for each student's strengths, needs, skills, and interests.
Diverse refers to the infinity variety of life experience and attributes a child brings to their formal learning at school.
Visibly relevant uses evidence-based ideas to help students better achieve learning goals. When thinking becomes visible, it is clear to students that school is not about memorizing facts, but about exploring ideas.
The literacy rate of Singapore. So literacy rate, according to glossary, it is a percentage of the population of a particular age group that could read and write. In adult literacy rate, it corresponds 15 years and above, and in youth literacy, it corresponds 15 to 24 years old, and while in elderly, it corresponds 65 years and above. So we measure literacy rate according to the ability to understand a simple statement of everyday life. So literacy, it is very important. Why? Because literacy, it creates better opportunities to people to develop their skills, to help them thrive in today's world, and so that they could provide for themselves and for their family also. So now let's move on. So when did Singapore become an ASEAN member? So ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, was formed on August 8, 1967. And Singapore was one of the founding members of ASEAN along with Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. And the capital city of Singapore is Singapore. Now let's proceed to the official currency of Singapore. The currency of the island state of Singapore is Singapore dollar, which is divided into 100 cents. So as you can see, this is the sign and the code of the Singapore dollar. So when we exchange Singapore dollar to US dollar, 1 Singapore dollar is equivalent to 0.7 US dollar. So obviously, it is expected to weaken or lessen Singapore dollar when exchanged to US dollar. And on the other hand, when we exchange Singapore dollar to Philippine peso, 1 Singapore dollar is equivalent to 40.8 Philippine peso. Now let's proceed to the official languages of Singapore. In Singapore, there are 4 official languages, and these are English, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. In Singapore, English is spoken in two main forms. In these are Singaporean Standard English and Singapore Colloquial English, which is better known as Singlish. Chinese is spoken natively in Singapore. Malay is an Austronesian language officially in Singapore, and Tamil is a Dravidian language which is natively spoken by Tamil people of Singapore. And now let's proceed to the ethnic languages of Singapore. In Singapore, there are 5 ethnic languages, and these are English, Malay, Tamil, Mandarin, and Chinese dialects.
For the continuation, we have here language or languages of instruction used in Singapore. So Singapore has adopted a bilingual style of education policy since 1966. And under the policy, we have English, one of the official languages of Singapore that is taught as the first language and is the main medium of instruction in schools. And the other remaining languages, which is the Chinese, Malay, and Tamil, which are the mother tongue languages of the major ethnic groups in Singapore, have been taught as the second languages in schools. And all the students are required to learn at least one mother tongue languages according to their ethnicity. Now, upon reading the passage, we could definitely infer the huge similarity between the Philippines and the Singaporeans' educational system. We do also have English as somehow our main medium of instruction, since the subjects that are taught here are in English. And we do also have our mother tongue languages that are taught in elementary grades. Now, on the other hand, the goals in teaching and learning English language in Singapore is to ensure that all students can attain the foundational skills in grammar, spelling, and basic pronunciation, so that they can use English in the everyday setting, and to also attain a good level of competence when it comes to writing and speaking in English for them to engage into service industries. Moving on, we have the percentage of ethnic groups in Singapore. Now, we all know that Singapore is a multi-ethnic society. The population of Singapore is very diverse as the result of considerable immigration. Now, Chinese being the predominant ethnic group, garnering a 3/4 of the total, and Malays, the next largest ethnic group, and Indians being the third. Now, as you can see in our pie graph, we have 74.3% Chinese, no wonder being the predominant group. We also have 13.5% Malays and 9.0% Indians. Next, we have the population. So the population of Singapore as of Wednesday, September 21, 2022 is 5,952,230. It is based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations data. Now, as you can see in our graph, we have here the increasing number of population of Singapore each passing years. Next, we have the type of government. Singapore is a Southeast Asian country which gained its independence from Malaysia on August 9, 1965. According to the Constitution of Singapore, the country has a parliamentary representative democratic system of government, with the president being the head of state and the prime minister as the head of government. The country practices a multi-party political system with democratic elections. Next, we have the name of agency who took care of their education. Education in Singapore is managed by the MOE, or the Ministry of Education. It controls the development and administration of the state schools receiving taxpayers' funding, but also has an advisory and supervisory role in respect of the private schools. The minister responsible is Chan Chun Sing, the Minister of Education. Number of primary schools, private and public. In 2020, there are 180 active primary schools in Singapore. Now we have number of educational institutions, state colleges or universities. Now there are 34 universities in Singapore.
The annual education budget of Singapore. The revised fiscal year 2021 total expenditure of the Ministry of Education is 13.17 billion. Of the total expenditure, 12.79 billion or 97.2% is for operating expenditure and 375 million or 2.8% is for development expenditure.
Percentage of education budget to their national budget. General government expenditure on education is expressed as a percentage of total general government expenditure on all sectors. It includes expenditure funded by transfers from international sources to government. Therefore, Singapore education spending for 2020 to 2022 was 11.91%. The overall literacy rate of adults for the last 30 years. So in 1980, it was 82.91%. 1990 was 89.10%. During 2000 was 92.55%, and for the year 2020 it was 97.13%. Overall literacy rate of male adults for the last 30 years. So in 1980 it was 96.41%. During 1990s was 98.86%. For 2000 was 99.41%, and for the year 2019 it was 99.91%. The overall literacy rate of female adults for the last 30 years. So in 1980 it was 73.97%. During 1990 was 83.3%. At 2000 was 86.65%, and for the year 2019 it was 96.13%.
The entire education system of Singapore is broadly classified into the following educational stages. Number 1 is a preschool, and the second one is a secondary, and the third one is a pre-university, university. The preschool education constitutes of play school, nursery, and kindergarten. Though this level of education is optional, more and more parents still are sending their wards to play school above 3 years or younger, or the nursery 4 years of age. By the age of 5, most children will be attending kindergarten for 2 years, K1 and K2. The preschool in Singapore need to be registered first itself in Singapore Ministry before it's functional. The primary education usually starts at the age of 7 and spans for 6 years in total. It is the first step towards a formal education. It is like attending the first grade through 6th grade as followed in the American education system. The primary education is broadly divided into 2 stages. From the foundation stage, primary 1 to 4, first 4 years orientation on stage. The primary 5 and 6 remaining 2 years in Singapore. After the 6 years in primary education, students have to appear first for a primary school leaving exam, or the PSLC. All those students who pass in the exam are admitted into a secondary level course. And now let's proceed into the secondary education. After passing the PSLE, students are placed now in the secondary school course, considering a combination factor of merit ranking in PSLE and student inclination towards a course. Aside from PSLE, students can also have this direct admission to the scheme called Direct School Admission Secondary Exercise. The entire secondary education is categorized into 4 streams: special, express, normal, or academic, or normal, technical, special, and express 4-year courses, at the end of which students will appear for Singapore, Cambridge, or the level of examination. The secondary education is usually completed in 4 or 5 years. Before proceeding in pre-university education, students need to appear first in level exam. Pre-university education is similar to attending 11th grade and 12th grade as per the American education system. The pre-university education is broadly classified into junior colleges. Junior colleges offer a 2-year junior college and a 3-year centralized institute pre-university course leading. These colleges equipments with students with necessary skills and knowledge as requisite for university education. And the second one is a polytechnics, offers a 3-year diploma course in verified subjects like tourism, biotechnology, digitals, media, engineering, business studies, and many more. All these courses are practical oriented with plenty of group work. Apart from junior colleges and polytechnics, students can also enroll themselves in Institute of Technical Education, or ITE. This institute promotes and imparts vocational and technical education in Singapore. It's academic year from January 2 unless it is a Friday or a weekend. If January 2 falls on a Friday or weekend ends, in that case, school academic year will start from the next immediate Monday. A single academic year of school is divided into 2 semesters, and each semester is further subdivided into 2 each term. A single academic year comprises of 40 weeks of teaching, 10 weeks for each term, and after each term, there will be holidays before the next commences. So as you can see at the screen, it is the calendar in school year for the primary and the secondary education in Singapore. Now let's proceed into a teacher-student ratio in Singapore. So it starts with preschool with 1.20 ratio, and the primary school with 14.69 ratio, and the secondary is 11.48 ratio. Programs for their students raise professional standards for each teacher, encourage motivation, and foster partnerships, schools, and communities. In addition, Singapore launched the Learn for Life initiative in 2018 to promote the flexibility in teaching, learning, and assessment with more opportunity for directed learning in and out of school. Singapore encouraged lifelong learning for Singaporeans in a way that brings satisfactions and each meaning. So, as you can see, Singapore is a rich country with they focuses more in each education system, which it can help their economic more growth as time passes by, as they discover more skills in Singaporean students. And as you can see at the screen, it's a quick facts and their government structures, research and education. They really hit a good target. It was ranked 7th instead Global Innovation Index and 3rd MDC 2014 World Competitiveness Ranking, and was 2nd in the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness from 2014-2015. In the city is ranked 15 best cities, reflecting educational excellence, high quality, and its global student community. There are 34 universities in Singapore, which are 6 national. So here are the top 10 universities in Singapore, as you can see in the screen.